And we're back here in WrestleRant for the second time this weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and for the entire month of November, we're breaking down every installment in Survivor Series history, or at least those I did not review last year here on the channel, including 96, 90, 97, 98, 2001, 02, 03, 05, 08, 2011, and 2012, already up here on the channel from last year, so if you want any of those reviews, they're already up. Be sure to go check them out from last November right here on the channel on WrestleRant. But today we're breaking down Survivor Series 2007 and what was, I think, the last Survivor Series that I had never seen. I've already seen 08 through 2014, obviously, because I've been a fan since then, and I watched 09 and 08 last year. I did not review 09 last year, but I watched it for the first time last year on the network, and I'll be reviewing that on Tuesday. But it was interesting. Now I have officially watched every installment of Survivor Series ever, so pretty exciting stuff. But this show kicked off with the ECW Championship match triple threat between CM Punk, the defending champion, John Morrison, and The Miz. Only days earlier did Morrison and Miz win the tag team titles together, the WWE tag team titles, I should specify, on SmackDown against MVP and Matt Hardy. And they were already rivals by this point. They were not yet the dirt sheet duo that they would become many months later, but they still had great chemistry, and they went into this match as tag team champions and as opponents and as contenders for the ECW title. So a far better match than we got from Punk and Miz at Cyber Sunday, which was not really any good. I thought some of their later matches in 2011 and 2012 were decent, but their 07 matches were not great at all. One-on-one anyway. When you had a triple threat match and you throw John Morrison, who's a great worker, obviously, and someone who also really didn't have the best of chemistry with Punk for the better part of the latter half of 2007, and then they had that great match at Unforgiven, or no, rather on the episode of ECW before Unforgiven, before Morrison I think he got suspended or something like that, but they had that great match, and putting Punk in the ring with two people that he's never really had the best of bouts with really turned out a lot better than I thought. They had a good opening match. Punk, in the end, reigned supreme and still the ECW champion. So a very good match from Punk, Morrison, and Miz. So after that, a 10-diva tag team match. Not elimination, just a standard 10-diva tag team match. Pitting Mickie James, Tori Wilson, Kelly, Michelle McCool, and Maria against Layla, Jillian Hall, Victoria Molina, and Beth Phoenix. Very, very typical women's match. Nothing bad, but it was very short-lived. It was over within like 4 or 5 minutes. No one really got any of their spots in. Your typical train wreck clusterfuck of a women's match. And I mean, I said this on Twitter too. I mean, we now, myself included, we all rant about the Divas Revolution and how poorly it's been handled and whatnot, which is an absolutely accurate statement, but you gotta appreciate the fact that we have so much more talent in the women's division right now than we ever did in like 07 and beyond. Maybe like in the early 2000s when the women had characters, but there was this weird time frame after Trish and Lita were gone and before the NXT women came in and AJ came in and Paige came in, all before those women, where we really did not have any characters that anyone really... I mean, we had some characters that people cared about. Mickie James, Beth Phoenix, and a few others, but no one gave a shit because the matches, they never got any time. They never really had many stories, and this was right around that time. They just put all the women in one match, and they didn't really have good workers. They just hired models more often than not. They had Jillian. You know, Victoria's a great worker. Tori Wilson's another one who, pure model, hot, but she wasn't a great worker. Maria, same thing. She got better, and I wish she kept her around, but the WWE kept her around because she was actually very good towards the end of her run there. Michelle McCool got better over time too, but still, I mean, you look at this match and it's just like, wow. I mean, you compare the Divas division from now and from today and back then, there's really no comparison. Absolutely no comparison. So you got to appreciate the fact we have far better workers in the women's division now than we ever did. I mean, it's still not perfect, but before we start complaining about the women of today, you got to look back at these pay-per-views and think to yourself that we are in a far better spot than we ever were 7 or 8 years ago. So after that, for the World Tag Team title, and the Babyface team won, by the way, who cares? But anyways, after that, for the World Tag Team titles, we had Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch successfully retaining the gold against Hardcore Holly and Cody Rhodes. Decent match. Hardcore Holly and Cody Rhodes had this program going on at the time where Cody Rhodes wasn't respecting Holly. They had a few matches one-on-one in the second half of 2007, so kind of a mini feud. They put those differences aside to go after the tag team titles. They would not win them here, but they would win them on the 15-year anniversary show on Monday Night Raw a couple weeks later, so that was probably better fitting for it. And considering the fact Dusty Rhodes was in Cody Rhodes' corner for that match and that moment, I'm sure it stands out as one of Cody's more special moments throughout his career. But as far as this match goes, not much riding on it. Rhodes and Khali had just become number one contenders on Heat of all places, so the match didn't really have much steam behind it, but it was a good affair. Khali and Cody kind of furthered their story, and it would build towards the rematch a couple weeks later on Raw. So after that, our first 4-on-5 elimination traditional Survivor Series tag team match, pitting Team Triple H, Rey Mysterio, Kane, Jeff Hardy, and Triple H against Umaga, Mr. Kennedy, Big Daddy V, Finlay, and MVP. So notice how I said 4-on-5. Now, originally, it was supposed to be Matt Hardy on the babyface team. Of course, he was feuding with MVP at that time, but he had legitimately gotten hurt right before this happened. He had to undergo surgery, I believe, on something. I forgot exactly what the injury was, but it happened right before the pay-per-view. They had to take him off the card. They wrote him out of storylines only days before the pay-per-view on SmackDown, so instead of replacing him, they just kept it vacant, and the babyfaces won anyway. But in this case, I didn't really have a huge problem with it. I mean, Umaga never, ever got one over on Triple H throughout their entire feud in the second half of 2007. Triple H beat him at Unforgiven. No, not at Unforgiven. No, I'm sorry. He beat him at Cyber Sunday, he beat him at No Mercy, and he at Survivor Series 2. So Umaga was kind of in a dead spot at this point. I know they never really had any intentions of pushing him towards the world title on Raw, but still I would have liked to see him get one over on Triple H, at least at some point. Regardless, a very entertaining match. I think even despite the 4-on-5 stipulation, which I believe might have been the first time in history, they flirted with it in 2004 when Maven got hurt, but he ended up coming back, so it ended up being 5-on-5 again. So this might have been the first time we had a 4-on-5 elimination match. I know we had 1-on-4 with Big Show in '99, which was awful. But other than that, this was a very good match. Triple H and Jeff Hardy kind of stood out as the sole survivors and had a great showing this year, building towards their number one contenders match at Armageddon the following month, where Hardy would beat him and advance to the Rumble to become the number one contender to the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. The heels here were good. Umaga had a very good showing. It took a pedigree and a swanton bomb to put him down, so despite my complaining about him never getting one over on the game, at least he looked good in defeat here, and everyone else looked fine as well. Triple H, you could say, typical Triple H win, burying all the heels, but it wasn't that bad. At least Jeff Hardy got something out of it, and it wasn't just Triple H, though. It wasn't a complete lost cause, and I thought it was a very good story told with Jeff Hardy and Triple H having to overcome the odds and pick up the win for their team. After that, we had the Great Khali taking on Hornswoggle. Complete comedy match, exactly what you would expect. This was right around the time they were doing that awful angle with Hornswoggle being the illegitimate son of Mr. McMahon, which they kind of played up throughout the night in backstage segments, and Shane came out to watch the match, and he got involved. It was a complete clusterfuck, and thank God it did not last long at all. It ended in a DQ after Finlay came in and attacked the Great Khali with Shillelagh, so kind of the unofficial babyface turn of Finlay after, despite the fact he had just been in a tag team match as a heel, he came out here as a babyface coming to Finlay's, or rather Hornswoggle's aid. But this whole thing was dumb, and you could tell it was dumb too. I mean, people point at, the Rumble when Roman Reigns won or when Batista won as times that the fans, offered backlash. But I mean, fans have been doing that for years. When they don't like something, they will let you know about it, and that was definitely evident during this angle, or at least during this match. When even before the match began, you heard a lot of a very loud "We Want Shaq" chant, and this show, I believe, took place in Miami, and Shaq was at ringside, and Vince going off the cuff, and he was at ringside for the match because, of course, in storyline, he was the illegitimate father of Hornswoggle, whatever. So he gets in the mic and says, "I don't care what you want," which can be interpreted in so many ways, and so many hilarious and realistic ways, all these years later, and saying that, I don't care what you want. I don't give a damn what you want. And it's so true. I don't even know if he was in character. I'm pretty sure that might have been a shoot. But very funny stuff. See, the match was awful, and thank God it was short-lived, though. So after that, for the WWE Championship, Randy Orton defending against Shawn Michaels. And the stipulation was here that after coming off of their Cyber Sunday bout, Randy Orton, if he got himself DQ'd, he would lose the WWE Championship, but Shawn Michaels, on the other hand, could not use the Sweet Chin music, otherwise he would lose. So a very, very good match, and despite the fact that Michaels couldn't use the Sweet Chin music, he went to various other maneuvers. He used I don't know if he used a crossface, because I know it was shortly after the Benoit tragedy. I know they banned that move for a while. But anyway, I don't know if he used the crossface, but he did use an ankle lock. He used a sharpshooter, which was great. I mean, almost exactly 10 years removed, not on the day exactly, but 10 years removed from the Montreal Screwjob when he beat Bret Hart with that same move in Montreal. So that was a nice ode to the Montreal Screwjob with the same component and being Shawn Michaels. But yeah, the rest of the match I thought was very, very good. They told a great story with Michaels. I really want to hit the Sweet Chin music, but I can't because I know I'll lose the title, but I really want to give Orton his comeuppance. And then in the end, at one point he was tuning up the band and he almost connected with it, and Orton cowered for a second because he thought he was actually going to hit it, and then Michaels rolls him up when Orton isn't looking, and he gets a 2 count. So that was a really cool spot. But in the end, though, Orton going for the RKO, Michaels pushes him off, goes for the sweet chin music, hesitates, and in that hesitation, Orton capitalizes, hits the RKO to retain the WWE Championship. So a very, very good match between these two. I always thought they had great chemistry. Awesome storytelling and a great way of making Michaels look strong in defeat. And then afterwards, he would hit a sweet chin music on Orton after Orton attacked him after the bout. So a nice little way of giving the fans what they wanted to see. Orton's still the WWE champion. Then the next night on Raw, we would get the return of Chris Jericho, which they offered the little video package for right after this match. So we get to the main event, a Hell in a Cell match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Batista defending against The Undertaker, in which was an amazing match. I thought it was a very, very good match. I don't know if it was my favorite match of the entire series, but it's funny, too. When I watched this the other day on the network, I've seen this match at least 3 times this year. I watched it on, I think it was on Batista's DVD, the first one. So I watched it then back in January. I watched it last month when I watched my Hell in a Cell competition DVD. And now I've watched it for the 3rd time in the last year, just a couple days ago when I was watching this pay-per-view. But if there's any one match to watch back 3 times, it's certainly this one. They told a great story to conclude their epic feud. A lot of back-and-forth action. A lot of both guys, I believe, were bleeding. But in the end, before Undertaker could pick up the win, I believe he delivered a tombstone to Batista on the steel steps. And before he can get the 3 count, Edge pulled out the referee, or pulled out Undertaker. I think it was the referee. He was dressed as a cameraman. So a nice little swerve there. The first time we had seen Edge since July. So a great return for the Rated R superstar. Hits a concerto on The Undertaker to allow Batista to pick up the win and retain the title. It was more about screwing Undertaker out of the title than just simply wreaking havoc, as he would, I believe he probably wanted to be the one to win the world title from Batista and not The Undertaker. So I guess that was the story they were telling there. And obviously, they would plant the seeds for their WrestleMania 24 match the following spring, and what I thought was a great match. And but my review of that has already appeared on the channel from WrestleMania 24, cheap plug. But yeah, very good way of going off the show. The return of Edge, a great Hell in a Cell match, and probably one of the truly last great cell matches in the last decade before they went PG. But even that being said, they had a great cell match between Edge and Taker, which was funny because this whole feud technically started in the steel cage, back in May of 07, that same year, but it would conclude inside the cell the following year at SummerSlam in one of my favorite SummerSlam matches of all time between Edge and Taker in the main event. But anyway, great match, very, very good show. Probably one of the better 07 pay-per-views I watched this year. I know 07 was kind of mostly remembered. I almost said reminded. Remembered as the year of the Benoit tragedy, and because of that, the second half of the year was kind of dead and not much happened. But other than that, though, we had a lot of great matches between Batista and Undertaker. They would have another great outing on this show in the main event. And in addition to that, we would have a great 4-on-5 traditional elimination tag team match, an awesome WWE title match. Khali and Hornswoggle, total waste of time, but it was what it was. The World Tag Team title match was good. The women's match was what it was, and the opener was fun as well, making this an above-average pay-per-view, in my opinion, especially considering the year. And I didn't think 07 was the greatest year for WWE, not only behind the scenes and everything that happened with Benoit, but just even from the product standpoint. And I know the Benoit tragedy kind of affected that. But regardless, I thought it was a good show. I'd give it 2 thumbs up, and definitely check it out on the WWE Network. So that is my review of Survivor Series 2007. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow. Not tomorrow, rather. This is going up on Sunday. So I'll be back on Tuesday with my review of Survivor Series, not SummerSlam. Survivor Series 2009. My review of 08 is already up here on the channel from last year, as I said earlier. But in the meantime, and in between time, you guys can catch me on Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Matthews. And also be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. You guys are great. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy Survivor Series tonight, which I'm very much looking forward to. Should be an awesome show. But until then, guys, enjoy the show. Enjoy your Sunday. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.